And let's have an exchange. It's not an interview. It's just us talking like we just did.
Yeah. No, honestly, thank you so much for having me here this morning. And it's been good to talk about, I guess, what's coming up in regards to this full moon, this lunar eclipse that we're having coming up, and just like all the energy that is showing up around us in regards to just like what we're seeing, how things are moving, how people are acting, how people are responding, how the world is responding, like at a global level. We're just seeing a lot of things like kind of like falling by the wayside, and old beliefs, old ways of being dismantling. And I think right now it's like a search that everyone is having in order to figure out what is their true north, and what feels the most authentic for how they can show up and how they can be of service. And I think there are a lot of people that are at a point now that are trying to figure out how they can be of service, or what does that look like and how does that feel authentic to them.
Yeah, and that moon is also crossing the north node in Cancer right now. So I'm gonna
Mm,
have that thing. And I'm so scared.
I
It's
know.
actually conjunct my Mars in Cancer. So
Mhm.
like the past week explains everything, but I'm like very much into like it has to be like reconfiguring my actions towards the world.
Mhm.
But then I can't act right now. I'm just like
Yeah,
in a thing.
no,
But
I feel that. I think it's more about just like knowing that there is something that has to shift. But like, I think right now it's about taking stock of what is coming up, and like what you're having to rationalize, what you're having like internal like reactions to, because those are the things that have to be fall like that have to fall away as this lunar eclipse transits. Now, I'm not sure. I know all I know is my Jupiter is in Cancer. That's the only thing that's in Cancer. But as you know, this is Scorpio thing. So all these water energies and having to like really close out certain cycles of emotion, very high level emotions. And I also think these are the things that target us in an emotional space that makes us really look at how do we feel about everything that's around us, and is this the reality that we feel the most comfortable in, and how do we change that, or how do we let go of things that feel low vibrational, that don't feel in alignment, so we can become closer to the path that has been set out for us, and knowing that our emotions, yes, they can go up and down, they can have like, the roller coaster ride, but at the end of the day, we know that we're going to be safe, and we know that we're going to be grounded after it all goes through. And that doesn't, everybody's situation, everybody's energy doesn't lend to that. So I think what we're doing now is figuring out how do we get on that roller coaster knowing that we're going to get to the end of the road and everything's going to be
I like the grounding thing you said because we're
fine.
exactly like with the earth and the water, like Cancer and Capricorn, like we have to get grounded. We have to be ourselves on our path within our energy. We wanted to bring this talk into like what's happening with the collective and with the messages to the collective. Like we actually have to connect to our energy instead of just looking at what others are saying about our own lives based on collective energies that we're reading and picking up on, which is so interesting and so helpful. But there's so much at the moment. Like how do we advance based on our own intuition? How do we develop it when everybody is giving you messages from the veil and from the other side,
Mhm.
and then you're like burning out, just burning out from it. Yeah.
And it's like, even for us that receive the messages from beyond, you know what I mean, and are doing the channeling of the work, I think it also lends to us to be like, okay, well, like, we know we cannot save everyone, and maybe everybody doesn't recognize that. You can't save everyone, and everybody has their own timeline in regards to just like their own growth process. But I think it's also about knowing when we have to acknowledge that and admit that, because that's what we're here to do. That's what we're here to make light of, and then also just allow people to understand, like, look, don't come to me if it's not working for you. Like, don't force it, because at the end of the day, I may not have the balm that you need in order to heal yourself, but you also know what has worked for you. And I think that this is like another thing: when you're in your ascension process, or when you're growing, when things are changing around you, you feel like everything has to be uprooted, everything has to be shifting, everything has to be different. And sometimes that's not the case. Sometimes it's really just thinking about what you already have, like, in your vicinity, and what's already happening for you, and just making certain changes and turning off certain lights and turning on other ones, so that way the vision looks different, it feels different, you know what I mean? It's a different ambiance. It can still be the same room, different ambiance, you know what I mean? But it's about you noticing that sometimes the energy that's supposed to color your space You don't need the same energy every day. You need a shift. And sometimes you have to just have to sit with your own white light and
Mhm.
just listen to that and pay attention to that and figure that out first before you start coloring it with other stuff.
Exactly, exactly. And you said saving. I bought a reading from VK Numerology, and she's amazing. I really recommend her. And she
Mm.
said, "You're not here to save, you're here to serve." And that like totally shifts the whole thing. And then the
Mm-hmm.
ego is like, I'm not a savior. I don't have to have this pressure, but also have this kind of ego like build up. You're just
Yeah.
here to serve, like back to humility. Like, I'm serving. You take it
Mm-hmm.
or you live it, but I'm not gonna make you take it, you know? And that's what the
100%.
message is when you share messages for the collective and all those things. It's really nice to maybe put the emphasis on, to whom it may resonate with. And then when
Mm-hmm.
you read collective messages, you have to know that you're taking on the collective energy. It might not apply to you, but you're letting it enter your space. I'm clear sentient. Whenever I read those messages, it feels like there's a breach, there's a wave of
Mm-hmm.
energy coming in, and it's not reflecting what's actually happening within me. And then I let the collective be a part of my reality, and I'm burnt out, and it's too much. So,
No, I agree. And it's like hard because it's like you want to be of service, like you want to be there, you want to be one of the voices that is helping the collective to move forward. But then it's also like, well, I have to separate my human body, my soul, from everything that everybody else is going through. And it's like, I don't want anybody to feel like it's not even a we don't care. It's more just like we have to lead by example. And leading by example is also knowing when you have to take a step back and prioritize self, prioritize the messages that are going to make the most sense, and also realize when ego is trying to step into the place and you may be just speaking from ego by doing certain messages or doing certain things just because you feel like you have to. And it's more about like, no, what feels the most authentic and on brand for you right now, because that's probably what you should be doing.
and also be constructive. I've
Mm-hmm.
I've read so many collective messages that are just like damning. It's like, oh God, my life is gonna be shit for the next month. It's like just be constructive. Things might be difficult, but you're gonna get through by prioritizing those things. I've seen people being like, oh wow, 2020 for you Scorpios, that's shit. Should be honest with
Mm.
yourself. And I'm like, what the fuck is this? Like, I'm kind of strong within, but I could be very vulnerable, or other people could be really like fucked up by those kind of messages. What the fuck?
Huh. It lends me to, like, I guess, like the idea of just like not even age, because it's not even about age, it's about the level of wisdom that comes from working with others, right? As somebody, we've been in service for years, and I was an educator before I stepped into being a healer. So it's just like about knowing, like, everybody needs something different, and also there's a way to help a person understand, that there may be challenges, but it's also about like the language that you choose, the way in which you discern and decipher messages in order to be able to bring it to somebody. And it's just like, everybody you can't speak to the same way. And I think this also goes to the idea of like collective messages. Like sometimes the collective messages that are coming, it's just like, think about who your audience is. And I don't think there's a lot, like sometimes there may be like missing that. Like make sure that you're your own audience first. And then if you're your own audience, is this how you would want to be spoken to by somebody else? And
Mhm.
that's what I think I always like think about before I go into stuff, because it's just like, listen, I'm still going to bring my personality into the space and I'm going to infuse that into whatever I do, because that's not changing. But then there's also a way to be constructive and like conceptualize how things are received and how information is channeled, and being able to hit those different modalities so others can receive and others can kind of like use that information for their benefit. It's not a one size fits all thing. And I think that that's like one of the things that we as healers, we as humans have to remember. It looks different for everybody.
That it's a huge responsibility, actually. Like,
Mm-hmm.
'cause delivering messages is huge. It's so big, and it affects people in a real way. It's not just a tweet or a message or something. So yeah,
Mm-hmm.
gotta be constructive. And to the people who are consuming it, like I'm consuming it too, to
Yes.
really see if something is there to be taken or just left. If it
Mm-hmm.
resonates, yes. If it doesn't, don't double guess it and think that maybe someone out there is actually doing you wrong. Like, no, just like live it, live it, live it,
Mm-hmm.
live it, and
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and develop your own intuition. I mean, the best thing, and that's why I'm teaching Reiki instead of more doing it. It's like I prefer for you to learn it yourself and do it on yourself.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. I think there's so much more excitement and joy and just like realizing what it is to mobilize somebody else to make shifts in their life and make changes in their life. And I think that that's like something that I have absolutely, well, it's not something, it's the thing that I absolutely love about like what we do is just like being light in somebody else's life as you're light in your own, because it's like as you're healing others, you're healing yourself. And that works for your family, that works for your friends. Like you start noticing things that you're working on with you, and you're starting to notice that in other people. And the other thing about that that's beautiful is you can acknowledge that. You can shout that out for another person to let them see how far they've come too. And that's what I find to be the benefit of being of service. Because it's really just like I'm getting to heal too, and all this is like we get to be, I don't know, we all get to live in love in that way. And I don't know, there's just a beauty in being able to do that, you know?
Hmm. Let's jump into the eclipse again. Like, we're having a difficult time. Like, it's not easy. It's not been easy for weeks now. And
Yeah.
I think it's going to, continue to develop into finding our own answers. I'm not saying it's not going to be easy, but like, we have to find our own answers. Do you have tips? How do you do it yourself, for yourself to, feel better?
That's a great question. So for me, I've been noticing because I'm just very sensitive to energy, and I've been noticing how sensitive I am. I think the older that I get, so I have been finding moments like I'm very much like a do not disturb type of person on my phone, but I have to be very intentional about the way that I disconnect. So I have been using a lot of like your binaural beats, your theta waves, your delta waves, and stuff like that. And what I'll do is kind of just like play those in the background. Like this morning when I spoke to you before we got together, I just like felt the pressure. Like I felt my head feeling very like foggy, if that makes sense. So what I did was I turned on one of like the tones that I like listening to, and I just laid down and I just let that kind of like play in the background. I normally sleep with like either crystals under my pillow or I'm always strapped. So it's just like sometimes it's just like a moment of just like taking a step back and knowing that I'm in that space. I need to take a step back and like recalibrate. When you do that, it allows for other things to happen in the midst, right? Because as you're taking a step back, the world is still moving, the universe is still happening. And it doesn't have to be sleep. It can be just turning off your phone and disconnecting from that, because we've gotten so used to, because it's so easy. We're always connected. So taking a moment to disconnect feels weird. But that's something that we should be leaning into a lot more, because it gives us time and space to really parse through the emotions and the feelings that are coming up, right? And being able to discern what is mine, what is not, how do I compartmentalize, how do I put things in different buckets, and figure out what bucket do I need to tackle first as I go into this eclipse season. So personally for me, right now I'm in a space of like there's so many different ideas that have just been popping up out of nowhere. Like I feel like I have so many different like my hand is in so many different pots, and I don't like getting overwhelmed, because then I just like shut down. So it's like no, like you can have all these different ideas arising, but know that there's certain things you have to prioritize, there's certain things you have to put forward and like put your energy into that. So something else has to have energy taken away from it. What do you feel needs to come off of your plate? How can you rationalize that this needs to come off your plate and still put energy into it in the way that feels the most authentic for you? And I've been kind of just like really just trying to figure out, okay, what builds up, what comes down. So just taking stock of things, I think, is really important for everybody right now, and their own internal stock, and then thinking about what others have brought in, what others have taken out. And it's really just like thinking about like taking yourself to the emotional and spiritual bank and checking on your savings. I think is really important going into this eclipse season. And then thinking about like, okay, what accounts can you close out? Um, what accounts can you close out? Because we got accounts for different things. You got accounts for your bills, so like your spiritual bills. So like I think about the people that you may be talking to about your ascension process or all the things that are changing. There may be certain energies that aren't on the same path of growth as you, and that's okay. That doesn't mean you have to completely shut them out, but you may not have to pay them every month, right? And then there may be something you have to subscribe to. That this would be helpful for you, whether it's a new practice, whether it's you engaging with a new person. Like I've been opening myself up to being more of a teacher myself, like in a larger way. So like holding classes, like teaching a variety of different things as far as tarot card readings, like working on your intuitive nature and how that connects to like your Myers-Briggs like identity and stuff like that. So like all these different things, but it's like I knew that I was not necessarily scared, I was apprehensive because it's like sometimes you wonder if you're all the way ready, and sometimes you just have to step out and lead and do and
Mm-hmm.
just let it be. So I
Mm-hmm.
think getting out of your own way is one of those other really important lessons as we go into eclipse season. Like, what do you just feel like you have to jump out and do because now's the best time instead of waiting until you feel like everything's going to be ready. It'll never be perfect. Just do it now.
That's beautiful. I've been I've been considering I've been listening to a lot of transurfing material. I don't know if you know about surfing, but it's when you decide to jump from timeline to timeline. And you're like, I know where this is going. I'm actually not into it. It's not manifesting, but it's like I'm gonna stop giving it attention and I'm gonna start considering another timeline where my life happens that way. And they have
Mm-hmm.
this thing where they say the pendulum, the way that the things are going to happen depends on how much you care or you don't care about those things. If you really care about getting money, then the pendulum is going to switch exactly the same level on the other side by, not giving you money. And all of
Mm-hmm.
those kind of teachings were like, wait, I'm so overwhelmed. I don't get it.
Yeah.
What am I supposed to do now? Am I supposed to think about those things or not think about? And I was like, woohoo. So really confused. And I was like, you know what? Fuck. Like, I'm gonna stop everything. I'm just gonna see what resonates with me. And I've been, when I have a fear about something, I've been trying to actually feel the fear and imagine the worst outcome, which is something I've heard. I've never done it. And now that I'm doing it, I'm like, just imagining the worst outcome. Like, I'm not getting the flat. I'm actually being kicked out with my luggage on the street. And I'm like, yeah, I'm still gonna make it. Like, either way,
Mm-hmm.
if this happens, this horrible thing happens, I'm not afraid of it because I can still call this person or go that place or like, I'm always fine. I'm so
Yeah.
always fine. And that makes me like, oh, okay, I'm not afraid anymore. Life is just
Yeah.
gonna happen. And that's great.
That is.
And
That's
yeah.
powerful. That's
It's really
powerful.
good. Yeah, really feeling it, like feeling the idea and imagining it inside of your head, visualizing the whole thing, which does not mean you're manifesting it. It just means that you're considering the fact that it could happen and you'd still be fine. And then you're not afraid anymore.
Thank you for saying that because I wanted, like you mentioned that, like the idea of like manifesting it and what does that actually look like. So I feel like this would be a great time to insert. I think that manifestations are when you are intentionally working towards something, working towards building something, putting in effort, putting in action. During eclipse season, one of the, more, I think it's like this pandemonium around like, should I manifest? Should I not? What should I be doing? X, Y, Z. And I just feel like eclipse season, at least from what I've experienced up until this point, it's just doing its thing. So it's just like, let us do its thing. If you put in the work already, like you had a whole damn year, a variety of different things that you've been putting out there. Let some stuff breathe for once because I feel like this is the time that things are actually like showing up and it's like, did what I put out there, is it coming to pass? And it may not come in the way that you expect it, but that allows you to see if you need to be more intentional on your next go around. So it's all planning. You know what I mean? And it's like the science behind it, even though it's not a scientific thing when it comes to the spiritual shit. You know what I mean? Like it's just like, but it's like the science behind letting things just kind of like happen and seeing what the outcome is that you want and seeing if like what actually works up to that point matches the vision. And then if not, how do you go back when you need to? It's like you're in school for those 9 weeks and then you have like the final exam and then you're like, "Ooh, did I really learn everything? Okay, now I can go back and like take all of the lessons because I know that there's going to be the final exam for the course." You know what I'm saying? Like at the very end of the year. So let me do my work to make sure that I fill up those holes first. And I think that this season is very much about that and just letting things fall into place, but also being gentle with yourself right now.
Exactly. Mm-hmm.
It's so important. We're not as gentle as we could be, and especially because there are other energies and other entities that try and make us super reflective, but reflective in a way where it feels damning, like damning and just like very like heavy, and it doesn't always have to be that.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. It feels like, with all the Capricorn and stuff, like karma is happening. Like what you've put
Mhm.
in is coming. You just need to let it breathe, as you said. And also the worst fears might happen, but so suddenly you're just fine and you're mature enough to handle them. And I mean, you cannot run away from them anyway. Like my grandmother was sick, then she died. It's like, what can I do about it? You know, it's just the way it is. And life
Mm.
is difficult, but I'm not a victim. I'm just not a victim. I'm not a victim to it. I'm not feeling like a victim. Life is difficult. I'm still here. I'm still gonna advance. I'm still gonna walk the first step every day because that's
Hmm.
just, there's nothing else I can do.
And work through the wave of like the healing with that, because all of that takes time. And I think that that's like important to like recognize too, and like acknowledge, like sometimes it's not going to come out immediately as far as like that healing process. All of the healing takes time to integrate, but it's just being open to what that looks like and being open to the process, because at the end of the day, you know that there's going to be a change and there's going to be a shift. It's just, how do you allow the change and the shift to be in the direction that you want it to be, in a positive manner, instead of it feeling like it's going to take away from, you know? Sometimes it's so easy to get caught up in that. Like, I'm actually coming on the anniversary of like my uncle's death. Like, it's the first year. So like, obviously, like trying to process that for me has been something, because it like we're like a couple of days out from like the year anniversary and stuff. And I'm just like, life has changed a lot since that, a year ago. Like, I would not be sitting in front of you right now, if this was a year ago. So it's just like, I don't know. Sometimes those moments, you have to look at like energetic timestamps and think about all the lessons that have come in while that energy was there, and how do you appreciate it, and how do you allow that to integrate and apply to certain aspects of your life, thinking about like where you were at a different time.
Yeah. I don't know if you've seen, but I've been writing future me emails where you get to write and select a date when that email is going to be received to you. And I really love that because I'm just like considering different paths and I'm like writing a lot of letters and then I never remember when I'm going to receive them. But it has helped me to be a mother to myself and to be really kind.
Mm-hmm.
And like we're saying today, right now, eclipse season, it's difficult. This exercise will make you actually warm yourself up and really like consider what might happen and how you can
Yeah.
be of help.
I love that. No, that's a great idea. Like sending like, so what I'm assuming is like you can send it in like an email where you're sending it at a future date and it just delivers to you. That's really nice.
That's
That's
so
really
good.
sweet.
So
We
good.
don't do that enough anymore. Like, we write in our, like, people write in their journals, but like how often do you write letters to like other people or like yourself, or I don't know, like that's something that would probably revolutionize the way that we talk to ourselves. Because if we see how we talk to ourselves on a regular basis, like on paper, then we would decide probably to talk to ourselves differently, because we would realize, and others probably, because we're just like, that doesn't feel good.
Hmm.
So I want to feel good. Sometimes I got to snatch myself up, but like I want to feel good more often than not.
Exactly. And what is like all this self-love and self-care? It could look like so many different ways, but it's not only, having a bath with bubbles or like drinking wine, whatever. It's
Yeah.
really like considering yourself as a, child, your inner child,
Yeah.
doing that.
And talking to that person and not being fearful of talking to that person. I think that's one of the things, like, everybody hates that. It goes back to the old saying, well, people may think I'm crazy if I'm talking to myself. And I'm just like, no, you're just having a personal check-in, and you are giving yourself, like, you're actually seeing yourself on a variety of different levels, instead of seeing yourself like as just this human that has things to do and then you die. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's so much more to life than that. And if you open yourself up to just like sitting and asking, like, well, what should I be doing right now? And just saying that out loud, or how should I be feeling right now? What should I be working through right now? And then just waiting for the answer to come, because it always comes, just may not come in the way that you expected.
Yeah, talking and listening. And
Mm-hmm.
we were talking about the talking, but we exchanged sessions a few weeks ago, and you told me to really like do it in a physical way, like to hug
Mm-hmm.
myself, to hug my solar plexus and all those things. And it has like changed the whole thing. Like I feel really good when I'm doing this. So yeah, people try that. Try hugging yourself. Try warming yourself up in a beautiful blanket or like doing those things where you're just doing it with love, with presence, consciousness, and like an aspect where you're considering all the cells, all the subconscious, all the conscious, and also your soul. Like my soul has experienced death because of doing this work. So sometimes I freak out when a lot of people see my work and they react to it. I freak out. I'm like, no, God, I'm gonna get killed. And then I have to
Mm-hmm.
renew it, like renew the fact that I'm protecting myself. I'm not gonna get killed in this century for doing this kind of work. And I
Mm-hmm.
am going to be okay. And listening to my intentions, my way, knowing how I do things so that I don't think that people's judgments are valid, you know?
Right. Mm-hmm. But that just comes from outside, like that's like outside projections that have become loud enough to like become in your internal. And it's like you're screaming to, you know, rid yourself of those and eradicate those from your being. So it's just like you have to rationalize with them. You have to grapple with those in order for it to make sense. So please feel free because that's part of the process, you know? And it's just like knowing that no, you will not be hurt in this lifetime. Because the thing is, like, that's why we were called back to do this at this time, because we knew that it'd be safe. So it's just like all we can do is lean into that, knowing that no matter what, no matter how we show up, no matter where we show up or when, it's all in due timing and it's all divine timing.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. And also like if the judgments comes and all those things, like we can remove it out of our space, but things
Yeah.
come back. Like there's a
Mm-hmm.
100% kind of battery thing. So if you're losing those 20% of those things, something else is gonna come back. Please make the choice to be the person who decides what comes instead of
Yeah.
letting whatever comes because you might have no control over it. So you can choose to
Right.
be like, this friend has been toxic to me. It's been years. I am going to remove myself from those premises. But instead of, just removing that, I'm also going to fill that space with self-love or learning a new language, like whatever. But just like knowing that when you do this also with Reiki, when you remove those things, you also have to put something back in it. Otherwise,
Mm-hmm.
what happens? The world is going to serve you your next karmic lesson, and then you're just fucking exhausted all the time.
All the time. Nobody wants to be tired all the time because that's not fun either.
Hmm. True. Yeah. Self-love and fun
A concept.
concepts. Let's try that reality. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm loving that. That's what I'm gonna be living during the rest of I mean, that's my mantra for the rest of January because you know eclipse season is for so long. So I'm just like, let's just ride this first month out, see what it's giving, let it happen the way that it's supposed to, and then we can go from there.
Yeah. Let's see. And like dealing with
Mm-hmm.
real life and real life things.
Mm-hmm.
Like
And letting that happen.
it's Capricorn season. Like it's real life, real things, like real responsibilities and tangible stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe concentrating on that more than anything else and going on with your life and preparing the project and buying that thing and signing up for that thing and like all the bills and all those things. Like
For
preparing that
sure.
kind of Saturn like ambience and then the
Mm-hmm.
rest of the year can be fun.
I think I'm down for that. I was about to say I'm so here for that, and it's just like let's just let these things kind of fall into place, do what we know we're supposed to, and like not try to force it. I think that's the other thing. Let's not force it. Let's just be, and everything will fall into place the way they're supposed to because we've worked hard to get here, and we know that.
Manifestation, burnout.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. Like just
Very real.
let things happen. Stop thinking you're in control of everything because that's just like manifestation is like thinking you're in control of everything that happens to you. You're not. You're just
You're
not.
not. You just put it out there and let it happen the way that it's supposed to because it's gonna happen regardless.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have another question? Do you have a thing?
No, I'm just thinking like I'm looking towards the future to freedom. You feel what I mean? And I'm just looking towards like, you know, these kind of conversations really can set your head back on straight in regards to just like you knowing that it's not just you. You know what I mean? Like it's not just you that's feeling these symptoms. It's not just you that is trying to make sense of things. It's not just you that's feeling a little off, like and being able to communicate with others and also like feel vulnerable enough to reach out, you know what I'm saying, and do that and get outside of the own four walls that are your body and your brain. And really just like being able to touch in and just like tap into that with others is really helpful, I think, for like this path. So thank you.
Thank you too. And I feel like all of those things are like new problems because we don't have solutions to this because this is new that we have collective messages or
Yeah.
manifestation. Like it's new things. They're great. but they also have their shadows. And
Mm-hmm.
I'm tired. I'm just really tired of all those things. So, yeah, it's nice to talk about it with someone, feel like I'm not alone, and yeah, I just find myself doing nothing, which never happened to me. But like in the past few weeks, I've been just sitting and watching the wall or watching the window and not reading, not listening to anything, just not writing, not creating, just nothing. And that feels really
Yeah.
good. So good.
Don't we miss it? I miss it. I haven't done, I've been doing the same where it's just like sometimes I'm like, I can't do anything right now except just be. And then I feel weird for just being. And that's when I'm like, you need to do this more because it shouldn't feel like that. And there was a time where you used to do this all the time and you felt great. So why don't you get back to that? Because there's absolutely no reason why, because it brought you to where you are now. It helped you to create your reality in this moment. So now it's just like more intentional, like just chilling out time and just like planning that more. Yesterday was the first day that I think that I had, because I'm always working, like I'm always working. So it was the first day where I didn't do anything like for clients or anything like that. I think I did the daily message and then I was just like, something doesn't feel like as far as like me continuing to put energy out there, let me just stop.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and it was just something I needed. And it was like, I sat in my house and I was like, why do I feel so empty? Why do I feel so empty, yet I'm so full? And it was just like, this is just a sign that you need to just take some time to just focus on you and be a human, be a person, connect with your groups, connect with your people, be honest, be authentic. And that's what's helped me to like pay attention to all of the things that have changed and how I feel and like being even more grateful for that.
Beautiful. Yes, we're, growing and finding peace.
Mm-hmm. There
Yeah.
we go. Thank
Thank you,
you.
Gary. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna stop recording.